You know, usually when we sit down and do one of these, we're unpacking a historical event or maybe a complex scientific theory. But today feels different. We are looking at a collision, a head-on crash between absolute sporting perfection and, well, absolute scandal.
It's the kind of story that just makes you want to pull your hair out as a boxing fan.
Yeah.
Because you have these two distinct realities existing at the exact same time, and they just contradict each other completely. It's hard to get your head around.
Exactly. We're talking about Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez. Now, on one hand, if you just watch the tape, I mean, if you turned off the news and just watched the 12 rounds, you saw a masterclass.
Oh, masterclass is putting it lightly.
Right. You saw Shakur Stevenson enter the ring against one of the most dangerous, explosive punchers at 140 pounds, and he didn't just beat him, he dismantled him. It was a complete shutout.
It was surgery. It was a dissection in front of millions of people. Lopez barely laid a glove on him.
But then, and this is the crux of it, before the sweat is even dry, before the victory lap is really over, the other shoe drops. And it's a heavy, heavy shoe. The news breaks that Stevenson has failed a drug test.
And suddenly the entire narrative just flips on its head.
So now we're left holding these two pieces of the puzzle that just don't fit. We have a virtuoso performance inside the ropes and a career-threatening, reputation-destroying allegation outside of them.
And that's really the mission today, isn't it? We aren't here to declare him guilty or innocent. I mean, that's for the commissions and the lawyers to figure out. But we are here to unpack this skill versus pill debate. Because this story, it forces us to ask some really uncomfortable questions about modern sports. Can you be a genius and a cheat at the same time? Does a chemical advantage actually help you dodge a punch? Or is the skill, that ring IQ, something entirely separate that can't be touched by a substance?
We've got a massive stack of sources today. We're going to get into the raw, visceral reaction from Teofimo Lopez's corner. And trust me, when I say angry, doesn't even begin to cover it.
Not even close.
We're going to look at the science of the drug in question, Ostarine, and what it actually does. And then we're going to do a forensic breakdown of the fight itself, using some insights from Max Kellerman and Bomac that, honestly, they changed the way I view boxing strategy.
It's going to be a heavy one, but I think we have to start with the bombshell itself. Because the timing of this, I mean, you couldn't write a worse script for the sport, or for Shakur.
No, you couldn't. Let's set the scene. The fight is over. The belts are on his shoulder. The narrative is supposed to be Shakur is the king. He's just beaten the man who beat the man. He's on top of the world.
The new face of the 140-pound division.
And then the report comes out, a failed test for Ostarine. Now, for the uninitiated, for anyone who doesn't follow this stuff closely, Ostarine might sound like a brand of margarine or something, but this is serious stuff, right?
It's incredibly serious. And we need to be specific here because the details really matter. Ostarine is what's known as a SARM. That's S-A-R-M, a selective androgen receptor modulator. And the key thing is, it's been on the DALIDA banned list since 2008.
2008. So this isn't some new gray area supplement that just popped up at GNC.
Not at all. This is a substance that has been flagged, tested for, and punished for over 15 years. The excuse of, I didn't know what it was, just doesn't fly with a substance like this.
Okay, so let's pause on SARM. What is the actual difference between that and, say, traditional anabolic steroids? Why would a fighter specifically reach for this particular substance?
That's the key question, and it gets to the heart of why it's so advantageous in a sport like boxing. Think of traditional steroids like a sledgehammer. They hit everything in your body, your muscles, your organs, your hormones. They make you huge, sure, but they come with a whole host of massive side effects.
Right.
SARMs are more like a sniper rifle. They are designed or selective to target specific tissues, primarily muscle and bone, without causing all that collateral damage.
So they give you the benefits without all the baggage.
That's the theory, yes. And for a boxer, Ostarine is, well, it's kind of the holy grail for one specific reason. It creates lean muscle mass, and crucially, it prevents muscle wasting while you are in a caloric deficit.
Okay, break that down. A caloric deficit.
Think about what a training camp is. You are starving yourself to make weight. You're running miles every day in a sweatsuit. Your body is under immense stress, and naturally, it wants to eat its own muscle for energy. It's a survival mechanism. Ostarine essentially tells your body, no, don't touch the muscle, keep the muscle, burn the fat instead.
That is a massive, massive advantage in a weight class sport. If I can come into the weigh-in 140 pounds, but keep the strength of a 150-pounder while you're depleting yourself the honest way.
Exactly. It's an enormous advantage. And it's not just about hitting harder either. It's about recovery. It's about being able to train harder for longer, day after day, without your body breaking down. You can push yourself past normal human limits.
Which means your cardio is better, your punch resistance is better.
Everything. Your engine is just bigger. So when the news broke, it wasn't just seen as a technical violation. It was viewed by the boxing community as a fundamental breach of the fair play contract. A betrayal.
And the reaction from the Lopez camp really reflects that sense of betrayal. I mean, I read the transcripts of Teofimo Lopez Sr., who is both the trainer and the father, which adds this whole other layer of emotion.
Yeah.
And he went nuclear.
Nuclear is the only word for it. And you have to try and empathize with his position for a second. He just watched his son get completely dominated for 12 rounds. That's already a hard pill to swallow as a father and a coach.
Yeah, that's got to be brutal.
Then he finds out the guy who did the dominating might have been chemically enhanced. Lopez Sr. didn't hold back at all. He called it disgusting. But then he used a word that really just stops you in your tracks. He compared it to murder.
Yeah, that jumped out at me immediately. He said, if you kill somebody, he was basically equating fighting on PEDs to entering the ring with a loaded weapon.
It sounds hyperbolic to an outsider. It really does. But inside the boxing fraternity, that is the sentiment. You are signing a contract to engage in physical combat. The only thing that keeps it from being a crime is the set of rules you both agree to.
And if you break those rules...
You break those rules to make yourself physically superior in a way that isn't natural, you aren't at boxing anymore. You're committing an assault. Lopez Sr. said, I told my son to be a real man.
The real man argument.
Right, and his view is a real man takes his losses with dignity. A real man trains naturally. He even had this really bitter, frustrated line where he said, my son could be a way better fighter and stronger if he was to take those substances too.
You can just feel the anger in that quote.
It's that raw frustration of the clean athlete. Why am I suffering through this weight cut honestly if the other guy's taking a shortcut that makes him stronger and healthier?
Yeah.
Makes you question everything. And his demand was immediate. Stevenson should let go of the belt immediately.
It's the erosion of trust. And it wasn't just the father, who you could maybe dismiss as being emotional. You had Gareth Davies, who is usually the voice of calm British reason in boxing journalism. He was absolutely zero tolerance on this.
Gareth didn't leave any room for nuance at all. His quote was just perfect in its simplicity.
Yeah.
If it's in your system, it's in there.
If it's in your system, it's in there.
Yeah.
That's like a bumper sticker for the anti-doping movement, isn't it?
It cuts through all the noise, all the excuses. Davies is essentially saying, I don't care how it got there. I don't care if it was a tainted supplement from the gas station or a calculated month-long cycle. It is your body. It is your ultimate responsibility.
That's correct. Liability.
100%. He points out that this erodes the legitimacy of the entire event. It doesn't matter if Shakur won every second of every round. The question now is, did he lose the war for respect? Davies seems to think so.
And George Kambosos, another fighter, he backed that up. He's a guy who has been in the wars. He basically said if VADA, the testing agency, caught you, then you're done. You're fully accountable. He called anyone who does this a piece of, well, we can't say the word, but he was not happy.
No. And that reflects the locker room code. Boxers know how incredibly hard the sport is. They know the suffering involved. When they see someone trying to cheat that suffering, the peer group turns on them fast and hard.
But, and there is always a but in these stories, isn't there? We have to look at the defense. Because the moment the news broke, you had Shakur's promoter, Eddie Hearn, in front of the cameras. And Eddie can sell ice to an Eskimo, but he seemed genuinely fired up about this being some kind of mistake.
Hearn went straight to the system issue defense. That was his term. He's trying to immediately shift the narrative away from Shakur as a cheater and towards the testing process itself is flawed.
What does system issue even mean, though? That sounds like corporate speak for we got caught.
It's a classic strategy to introduce reasonable doubt into the public consciousness. He's implying things like contamination or a false positive or problems with the lab. But the centerpiece of his defense, the thing he kept coming back to, was a text message he said he received from Stevenson.
Right, the sabotage text.
Yes. Stevenson apparently texted him, I swear I've not taken anything. This is sabotage. This is just a system against me. Now, sabotage is a massive claim.
That's a conspiracy.
It is. That implies someone broke into his camp or spiked his food or his water bottle. It's an explosive allegation.
But let's be real for a second. Every athlete who pops for a banned substance says it's sabotage, or it was a tainted burrito, or a sex pill they bought online, or their wife's medication somehow got into their system. How much stock can we actually put in that defense?
Historically, Very, very little. The tainted supplement excuse has a slightly better track record, but sabotage almost never holds up.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the science here, which was provided by Liam Goff in our source stack, because this is where the trace amount argument comes into play.
Okay, walk us through the forensics of this. This gets complicated.
It does. Goff breaks down the difference between detection windows. If you take a drug, it doesn't just stay in your system forever at the same level. It has a half-life, it breaks down. But different tests can catch different things for different amounts of time.
Like a hair test versus a urine test?
Exactly. A hair follicle test can show drug use from months and months ago. A urine test is much more immediate. It shows what's been in your system in the last few days or weeks.
So if they found a tiny trace amount, does that prove he wasn't on a full-blown cycle? Does it support the "I accidentally ate something" defense?
Not necessarily. And this is the trap people fall into. You could be at the very, very end of a cycle where the substance is almost completely out of your body, and the test just picks up the tail of it. Or it could genuinely be a microscopic contamination from a legal supplement that was made in a factory in China that also happens to make Ostarine on the same equipment. It's possible. The test result itself is a binary pass-fail, but the biology behind it is analog. There are levels and concentrations.
So Goff is saying there's a sliver of a gray area.
Yes. He's saying that depending on the nanograms per milliliter found, which, by the way, we don't always get to see publicly, it could potentially support the contamination theory. But, and this is a huge notice, but VADA operates under a strict liability policy.
There it is again.
It doesn't matter how it got there. You are responsible for what is in your veins, period.
And that's where Sam Jones comes in with what he calls the wait-and-see approach. He's basically telling everyone, hey, put down the pitchforks for a minute.
Jones is trying to protect the human element in all of this. He's saying, look, we don't know Shakur's character personally. Is he a maniac, as Jones puts it, who is willing to do anything to win? Or is he just a young guy who maybe trusted the wrong nutritionist or took a supplement he shouldn't have?
He's arguing for due process.
Essentially, yes. He's urging the public not to permanently label him a cheat until the B sample comes back positive and the full adjudication process happens.
Which is perfectly fair in a court of law, but the court of public opinion moves at the speed of Twitter.
Exactly. And the reputational damage is usually done long before the truth ever puts its shoes on.
Let's pivot to the institution itself. Because if we can't trust the fighters to be clean, and we can't always trust the promoters, to be honest, who do we trust? Jim Lampley, who is basically the voice of God in boxing for a generation of fans, he stepped up to defend the process.
Lampley's take is absolutely crucial here because he defends VADA, the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association. And I want to stress that word voluntary. These fighters sign up for this level of scrutiny. They agree to be tested anytime, anywhere.
They invite the testers in.
They do. And Lampley says flat out, VADA doesn't lie.
So he's putting his own considerable reputation on the science behind the testing.
He is. He emphasizes that this is legitimate, high-level scientific research. It's not some guy with a dipstick in a basement lab. These are WADA-accredited facilities. Lampley's belief is that if VADA flags a sample, it has to be addressed with zero leniency.
It doesn't matter how famous you are.
It doesn't matter if you're the face of the sport or the next big thing. If the alarm bell rings, there is a fire. You have to treat it as such.
And why is that fire so uniquely dangerous in boxing? This brings us to what Devin Haney and Gervonta Tank Davis were talking about. And honestly, Haney's point is the one that sticks with me the most out of all of this.
It should, because Haney strips away the sport aspect for a moment and looks at the brutal reality. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, this is about physical safety. We aren't playing tennis. We aren't playing golf.
Right.
If you cheat in tennis, maybe you hit the ball a little harder. If you cheat in boxing, you are inflicting more trauma on another human being's brain.
It's the difference between an unfair advantage and a potentially lethal advantage.
Precisely. Haney argues that the rules about PEDs exist primarily to keep people alive. Boxing is already dangerous enough when everything is fair. You can die in the ring when both fighters are clean. If you add a chemical that allows a fighter to punch harder, or, more importantly, to maintain a high punch output in rounds 10, 11, and 12 when a normal body would be fading, you are dramatically increasing the probability of tragedy.
And Tank Davis. He wasn't as philosophical about it. He went straight for the character assassination.
Tank called them snakes. That was his word. And he called out the hypocrisy of the boxing establishment, and this is a very valid point, where we've seen big fights go ahead, after a fighter has already tested positive because there was just too much money on the line to cancel it.
The too big to fail problem in sports.
Exactly. Tank is saying the whole system is corrupt if they let these guys fight. He views anyone who uses PEDs as dishonest, as cowardly, and as untrustworthy. It's a total rejection of the person, not just the action. A fundamental character flaw.
And meanwhile, while the fighters and the old guard are talking about life and death and honor, the internet is doing what the internet does. Steven Espinoza, the former head of Showtime Sports, talked about the social media storm.
And this is the cynical, but probably true, side of the business. Espinoza points out that scandal drives numbers. The buzz around a fight often has absolutely nothing to do with the sport itself.
So controversies like this, they actually help the bottom line.
In the short term, absolutely. People love a villain. They love a conspiracy theory. They want to tune in to see the fallout. It creates drama. But Espinoza warns that this is a sugar rush. It feels good for a moment, but it destroys the sport in the long run.
How so?
If fans stop believing that what they're watching is a real competition, if they start to think it's all just chemistry and politics and backroom deals, they eventually tune out. We become professional wrestling, but without the script to protect the athletes.
That's a terrifying thought, that we are just watching two science experiments smash into each other.
It really raises the question, are we as fans addicted to the drama, or are we addicted to the skill? Because if we truly care about the skill, this Austrian news should break our hearts.
Well, speaking of skill, I think we have to talk about the fight now. We have to separate the art from the artist just for a moment, because despite the test result, what happened in that ring for several 6 minutes was absolutely fascinating.
It was a revelation. And this is where the cognitive dissonance just hits you like a brick wall. Because if you analyze the fight mechanics, if you break down what actually happened, Austrian doesn't explain what we saw.
Johnny Nelson made this point really well, right? This is the core of the skill versus pill argument.
Yes. Nelson's argument is simple and powerful. Drugs can give you lungs. They can give you stronger muscles. But they cannot give you ring IQ. They can't teach you how to slip a jab by 2 millimeters. They can't teach you distance management. They can't give you the timing to land a perfect counterpunch.
You can't inject timing.
You can't inject boxing genius. Exactly. Nelson argues that Stevenson's dominance was cerebral. It was technical. It was based on intelligence and skill, not brute force. And that is why the result is so confusing. If he was just physically bullying Lopez, pushing him around with raw strength, you'd say, aha, that's the Austrian. But he wasn't.
So how did he bully him? Because Adeo Ladipo and Bomac Terrence Crawford's trainer, one of the best minds in the game, they both used that specific word. They said Stevenson bullied Lopez. But Lopez is the big, strong 140-pounder. He's the knockout artist. How do you bully a bully without using strength?
You bully him with positioning. You bully him with intelligence. This is the nuance the casual fans often miss, but it's everything at the elite level. Bomac pointed out that Stevenson bullied Lopez while going backwards.
Bullying off the back foot. That sounds like a complete contradiction.
It does, but it's the highest level of the sweet science.
Right.
Usually the bully is the guy walking forward, pushing you against the ropes, smothering you. Stevenson did the complete opposite. He controlled the distance so perfectly that he forced Lopez to constantly reach and fall short.
So he was drawing Lopez in.
Constantly. He would step into the pocket just close enough to tempt Lopez into throwing. And then when Lopez threw that big right hand he's known for, Shakur was already gone. He'd pivot, land a quick counter, and be out of range before Lopez could even reset.
It's like fighting a ghost who hits back.
It's demoralizing. It's frustrating. Oladipo noted the punches and bunches. Stevenson wasn't throwing one big haymaker. He was peppering Lopez. A quick pop, pop, pop. Every single time Lopez tried to reset his feet, he got hit again. And if you can't get your feet set in boxing, you can't punch with any real power.
And the stats backed it up completely. It was a shutout. Lopez barely landed a glove all night.
He was hitting air. He was swinging at shadows. Bomac said, Stevenson's ability to dictate the pace and the location of every exchange made him completely untouchable. And that's not a physical attribute. That is a mental attribute. That's a general leading an army.
Tim Bradley Jr., another brilliant boxing mind, he talked about the psychological aspect of this. He said Stevenson made Lopez answer questions. I love that phrasing.
It's perfect, isn't it? Think of a fight as a conversation or a high-speed debate. Lopez would make a statement, I'm going to throw a jab. Stevenson would immediately retort, okay, I'm going to slip inside of that and hit your body. Then Stevenson would ask a question, I'm moving to your left now. What are you going to do about it?
And Lopez just didn't have the answer.
He was stuttering. He ran out of arguments. Bradley said you could literally see the panic set in around round 5 or 6. Lopez is used to being the alpha. He's used to guys folding under his pressure and his power. But here, everything he tried was countered. The source quote was, "Everything he did, he got countered."
By the second half of the fight, he looked completely lost.
He was mentally broken. By the 8th round, Lopez wasn't fighting to win anymore. He was just fighting to survive the embarrassment.
Wow.
Completely. And Bradley noted that if Stevenson had really stepped on the gas a little harder in those championship rounds, Lopez might have quit on his stool. The psychological dismantling was that total.
This leads us perfectly into the most interesting piece of analysis in our entire stack of sources, the Max Kellerman breakdown. Max loves his analogies, but this chess versus checkers thing, this was next level.
Oh, this is the intellectual core of the entire deep dive. If you want to understand not just this fight, but boxing strategy at the highest level, you have to understand this distinction. Kellerman broke down the difference between strategy and tactics using a chessboard.
Okay, lay it out for us. Strategy versus tactics. Because most people, myself included sometimes, use those words interchangeably.
Right. But in game theory, they are very, very different concepts. Tactics, as Kellerman explains, are the moves themselves. In chess, a tactic is, I take your pawn with my bishop, or I move my rook here. In boxing, tactics are the punches, the left hook, the uppercut, the slip, the feint.
Okay, so tactics are the individual tools in the toolbox, the moves you can make.
Exactly. Strategy, however, is about controlling the board itself. It's the overarching plan. In chess, the fundamental strategy, the one they teach you on day 1, is to control the center of the board.
Why the center?
Kellerman gives a perfect example. If you put a knight in the dead center of the board, it can attack 8 different squares. It has maximum influence, maximum power.
Okay, I'm visualizing that. Makes sense.
Now take that exact same knight, the same piece with the same tactical abilities, and put it in the corner of the board. Now it can only attack 2 squares. The piece is the same, the tactic is the same, but its position on the board, its strategic placement, makes it weak and ineffective.
So location dictates power. Strategy enables tactics.
Precisely. And Kellerman argues that Stevenson's genius in this fight was strategy. He controlled the center of the ring. He owned the board. By staying in the center, or by always controlling the pivot points and the angles, he severely limited Lopez's options.
So Lopez was the knight stuck in the corner.
Lopez had great tactics. That's the thing. He has fast hands, he has a ton of power, he has dangerous pieces on the board. But he had no coherent strategy. He was throwing those powerful pieces from the corner of the board. He was flailing. Stevenson had both. He had the grand strategy to control the space, and he had the brilliant tactics, the counters, to punish Lopez every time he tried to enter that space.
That is profound. It implies that Lopez never really had a chance, regardless of how hard he punched or how fast he was.
He was playing a different game. He was playing checkers.
Yeah.
Trying to jump one piece at a time. Stevenson was playing Grandmaster chess, controlling the geometry of the entire battlefield from the opening bell.
And this, of course, brings us right back to the Austrian. Because if Stevenson won because of geometry and spatial awareness and strategy, does the drug even matter?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is where we have to be really careful not to just dismiss the physical side of things. It's not that simple.
Okay, play devil's advocate for me. How does the pill help the chess player?
Okay. To execute that level of grand strategy, to constantly be in the right position, to never have a mental lapse, to keep your feet moving perfectly for 36 minutes under bright lights with someone trying to take your head off, you need an engine, a world-class engine.
The brain needs oxygen, the legs need to work.
Exactly. When a fighter gets tired, the first thing that goes is your legs. You get flat-footed. The second thing that goes is your mind. You stop seeing the angles, you stop anticipating, you get lazy, you make mistakes.
You stop playing chess and you just start swinging.
You start playing checkers. If Austrian allowed Stevenson to train harder, to have better cardio, to recover faster between rounds, so he was fresher in round 10 than Lopez was, then it did help him play chess. He kept the Grandmaster's brain fueled and awake for the entire match, so to speak.
So you can't completely separate the skill from the pill. The pill might be what powers the skill, what allows the skill to be expressed for the full 12 rounds.
That's the uncomfortable, complicated truth. The drug didn't teach him the moves, but it might have provided the endurance to execute them perfectly. It casts a shadow on the engine that powered the whole operation.
So where does that leave us? As we move into the conclusion and legacy of this, we are left with a complete and utter mess.
We are. We're in this position where we have to synthesize 2 opposing realities. Reality A. Shakur Stevenson is a generational talent, a boxing savant who put on an absolute clinic. Reality B. Shakur Stevenson failed a drug test for a serious banned substance. Both of these things are true.
It's the duality of the modern athlete, the complexity we don't want to admit exists.
Bomac had a great final thought on this in the sources. He warned young amateur boxers, watch this man for his skill. Study his tapes. Learn from his footwork, his defense, but also understand the cautionary tale. You can build a magnificent castle of skill, but one small brook of scandal can bring the whole thing crashing down.
Or at the very least, leave a permanent graffiti mark on the front door that you can never scrub off.
The final verdict from the sources we looked at is, unsurprisingly, mixed. The boxing IQ is undeniable. No one is taking that away from him. That performance is on tape forever. But the bombshell of the failed test won't ever go away either. It will be in the first paragraph of his Wikipedia page for the rest of time.
And we still don't know the intent, which is the most frustrating part. Was it sabotage, like he claimed? Was it a genuine, stupid mistake with a tainted supplement? Or was it a calculated risk, a cold decision where he thought, I need this chemical edge to ensure I win the belt and get to the next level?
We will likely never know the truth of the intent. We only know the result of the test. And that's what he has to live with.
So as we wrap this deep dive up, what is the final takeaway for the listener? We've covered the anger of the father, the science of the chemist, the cold logic of the journalist, and the beautiful strategy of the chess master.
I think the takeaway, for me at least, is about the fragility of greatness.
Yeah.
We want our heroes to be perfect. We want the performance to be pure and untainted. But sports are human endeavors, and humans are flawed, complicated beings.
And sometimes those flawed humans are chemically enhanced.
This perfect storm is just that. A career-defining win that was immediately marred by a career-threatening accusation.
Yeah.
The highest high and the lowest low, all within 24 hours.
So here's the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with. We live in an era of biohacking, of advanced nutrition, cryotherapy chambers, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The line between optimization and cheating is chemically distinct. It's written on a WADA list. But the desire to find every possible edge is universal in sports.
Right. It's the same impulse.
So if a fighter dominates an opponent so thoroughly on a mental and strategic level, the way Stevenson did, if the victory was so clearly won in the mind before it was ever won with a fist, does the physical advantage the pill may have provided even matter to the history books? Or will an asterisk just hang over this fight and his career forever?
The truth will always be in the action. We saw the fight. We know what we saw. But the doubt that lingers in the blood.
That lingers in the blood. Man, that is a heavy note to end on. But that's the reality of the fight game in the modern era.
Stay curious and keep questioning what you see.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.